If I can do this after I started recording. Oop, present. I think I did that opposite, y'all. Why can I not? Hey, Erica, I've
I'm
totally.
here for you, babe. Yep. What's up?
Oh, wait. I didn't share screen. Okay, here we go. All right, y'all. I'm about to lose the visual. Share screen. You're gonna get a look into my life. All right, here we go. Okay. Everybody see that?
We sure do.
All right. So we are going to go ahead and get started. Welcome to Who's Hijacked My Relationship. If you're not already on mute, go ahead and do so now. And if you can't figure out how to mute, Erica or I can figure out how to do that for you.
Do
So
you want me to mute everyone now and then unmute
yeah,
them later? Okay.
if you don't mind, please. Thank you. Thank you all for coming. I appreciate each and every one of you. I'm going to get real today, and it kind of makes me nervous because my husband is also here. There are a couple men on the call, men who value the conscious work and understand the masculine and feminine and what it takes for both. Originally, well, this is definitely geared towards women, but it never hurts to see men in action doing the work too. It's pretty encouraging, I think. So thank you all for being here. We are recording. The first thing is play all out and have fun. I don't know. There's somebody in the chat. All right, I'm just going to stop paying attention to the chat. Play out and have fun, everyone. This is going to be really fun. So a few house rules I want to get over up front. Close all the tabs you may have open if you can. All I ask is for your focus the next 90 minutes. I'm going to try to get through this as quickly as possible and as effectively as possible. I want to make sure all your questions are answered. I don't know about you. I'm one of those people that if there's a burning question, I won't be able to focus for the next however long. There are going to be specific places for questions and conversation. So if it can be saved, please do so. If not, drop it in the chat and Erica will be watching. But what I want to make sure of is that everyone gets that burning question or whatever's coming up for resolution addressed. It's all important. Please stay on mute and raise your little digital yellow hands if you have a question. Does everybody know where the little digital hand is? Okay, cool. And if not, you can put Q in the chat or put a question in the chat and Erica will see it. Keep your camera on if you can throughout the workshop. There are some people who will be popping off and on. And if it's unsafe or if you're in an environment where you need to have the camera off, no worries. I just want to make sure all of you are okay. There may be places in here where stuff comes up. Maybe hit your own stuff because something touched a nerve. The only reason I ask to stay on camera is so that we can see your faces and make sure everyone's okay. But I'm also going to trust that you know your own limits and your own boundaries. So also, this is being recorded. We're recording this, and if any of you would like the replay, I'm going to send it out. I advertise no replays, but I'm going to send it out if you'd like it. So here's what we're going to cover. Why love is or isn't, why love isn't an and or game, and how to hijack it in your favor. Now, it's not specifically for romantic love. These rules are going to apply to platonic love as well. It just shows up a little bit differently, and we'll get into that. We're going to cover the 4 archetypes running your relationships on an unconscious level. They show up and they show up for a reason. And we're going to talk about how to break the karmic cycles, even when you've hit all your, wait, first, permission to curse and swear? Do I have permission? Great. So how to break the karmic cycles, even when you hit all your shit, because it's going to happen. It's impossible not to. The bonus is going to be revealed at the end to help you achieve self-relationship mastery, or I like to call it the relationship blueprint, easier, faster, and with less effort. I call it the blueprint because inside of every one of you beautiful people is the blueprint for how you form, keep, and maintain or leave relationships and how that looks in your life. So self-relationship is number 1. In my experience, so This is my husband. He's also in one of these Zoom screens. Amazing relationships don't just happen. And this came from one of those posts that I did when I was hitting on myself. And I'm like, I got to get this out of me right now. I watched a ton of fairy tale movies as a kid. And I learned as long as two people choose each other, love's enough. Not how it worked out for me. For me, what happened was serious attraction, decent amount of fantasizing, 16-year-old girl laying in bed, imagining what could happen. This could be the love of my life. Maybe this is the one. And replacing all the unknowns with what I think or hope is going to happen. I'd silently muse for hours. I swear, like this is all I thought about. I had some goals, y'all, all A's, achievement, 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 but love and that perfect person was at the very top of my list. I was waiting for someone to come save me. Literally came out of my mouth. I was thinking, oh, maybe this, when I learned about spirituality, maybe this is my twin flame. Maybe this is the one. And once I was hooked, all hell broke loose. So at that point, the person who was a must now became Satan in my world. And this is how most relationships went in my life until I did some serious healing. Here's what I learned. Everyone wears a mask for about 6 months. The relationship rules to follow to snag the love of your life. I followed those. I learned them all. Have you all heard about Matthew Hussey, the relationship guy? Maybe, maybe not. I got into him. I got into Abraham. So I was like all into manifesting my perfect relationship and figuring out what was really going on in men's head. Didn't work out for me. Tried so many roles. So for me, at that point, when everything goes crazy and the unhealed child starts running the show after about 6 months, it's hard to know whether to stay or get out or pinpoint where everything went wrong. It's kind of like, where did this go wrong? What happened? All of a sudden, everything went crazy. That was a cycle that repeated in every relationship. The highs were high, the lows were low. It was like walking into heaven and then finding the other H word as soon as the door closed behind me. It was like a big trick. That's what it felt like. No matter what I did differently or how hard I tried, things just didn't work out. And there was never a good reason. It was bizarre. I started to think I was cosmically cursed and like the universe or God hated me. And here's the crazy thing, y'all. This started happening to me in business. All the things that should have worked out didn't. It was like, if my love life can work out, I won't care about this business. Or if my business can work out, maybe I can let the love life go. Which one is it? It's like they took turns torturing me. It was wild. Come on now. So with my husband's beautiful man he is, I found the hell that I thought I escaped from childhood. Now I know everyone's story isn't like this, but I feel like a lot of women have a story very similar, especially the ones focused on growth and healing. So he felt the same way. It was a big cosmic twist because once we committed, everything that we had kept under wraps that we didn't know we were keeping under wraps came out to play. It was hard to tell if we were in a toxic trauma bond or if we were in the beginning of the conscious relationship. My opinion is it can go either way. That is my personal opinion, that when this happens, you can go either way and there's no predicting what it is because there's two people in it. And there's free will. We'll get into that later. But here's the thing. Healing while you're in the relationship is one of the hardest things you will ever do. This is why most people leave and continue to find the same thing over. That's what I did for like, 15 years, 20 years, I don't know how many years. But it is also the most powerful thing you can do. And what I didn't know is it's a yes and game. Same for business. Love and money are like this, y'all. And I've got the money workshop coming up in about a month, but we're going to dive into love here. So just know if money's in the back of your mind, we're covering that too. All right. So there's multiple truths to hold at the same time in a relationship. Complete paradox. If you're into values levels, it's level 7. It's about allowing the other person to show up exactly as they are, no control, and assessing how you show up at the same time. No big deal, right? Super easy. I roll. So understanding how what you're doing impacts them and understanding how what they're doing impacts you. It's like a two-way street minimum all the time, which is why allowing the outdated dynamics to die while holding the miracle that it will revive is the only way I figured out how to let this thing happen without completely leaving altogether or cutting someone out of my life. This goes for both parties. It's that paradox of I'll let the old stuff go and die and also hold space for the miracle. It's really hard to do. Has anyone else felt like this? Anyone else? Has anyone else had to do this? It's like painful, y'all. Super painful. So when the relationship needs an upgrade, rupture has to happen. And here's the general rules to navigate rupture. Most people hate rupture. I don't know about y'all. I was raised in a codependent family where if someone wasn't like all the way up my tree all the time, I was terrified they'd leave. But if they were, I was annoyed. One of the two. One of the two. Classic codependency. That's the household I was born in. I was like anxious avoidant. I was both attachments, which is disorganized attachment style, meaning you never know what's going to happen. Worst of both worlds at any point. And I never knew how I was going to feel. It was wild. It's like I needed the train ride, the crazy roller coaster. So here's the general rules to navigate rupture. Stand for yourself while respecting the other person. Keyword, while respecting the other person. 2, be okay with being wrong. 3, don't accept responsibility for the other person's role while owning your own role. And here's where it gets crazy. If you've never learned to differentiate where you stop and another person starts, or if you've always learned to pick up the role, maybe you've been parentified as a child, this is extremely difficult. It's literally baked into your neurology to take everyone else's stuff on. And that happens in the body by default. This resonate with anybody? This was me for sure. This was me. All right. So always check your projections. We're going to talk about what that is as well. And this goes for both parties. Kind of a tall order, if you ask me. So that's a hard pill to swallow if you didn't grow up in that kind of environment. As a child, I never had my feelings validated. And I was never allowed to express myself or my boundaries. Anyone else? Anyone else told to be quiet and you're meant to be seen and not heard? Okay. Yep. There you go. Thank you. So what I looked for my entire life was for someone to do this for me. I was literally looking for someone to validate my feelings, help me express myself, and know my boundaries for me. That's what I was expecting. What I learned the hard way is someone in every relationship to change the contract has to heal first. When two people enter a relationship, have y'all heard of the book, The 4 Agreements? That book is based on how invisible relationships are made. I see some people clapping. Yes, that book is amazing. That is like the how-to to not take any of the other person's stuff personally while also being very responsible for self. There are invisible contracts being made all the time between humans based on how we show up and what we allow ourselves to be treated like. So when someone changes and heals, this is how you change the spiritual contract. And it usually doesn't go over well. In my experience, it's usually the woman first. Trent may disagree. I've heard both ways, but I'm connected to a lot of women who try to heal first and then drag the man or drag the other party. And that's the thing. You cannot drag the other person and you cannot heal for them. Anybody here try to heal for anybody else? I did. I tried to do it. Not possible. You cannot hurt enough to make another person feel good and you cannot heal enough to rub off on them. There is resonance and nervous system resonance. We'll talk about that, but it's different. So the wild thing is, in order to create something completely different, you have to create what you ran from, not consciously. This is done by default, unconsciously. You have to recreate it and change it. It's by design. It's in the plan. It has to happen. A human with their nervous system and unconscious programming, which is the 90%, will recreate the first model of romantic relationships in life. This is your relationship blueprint. Does anyone remember the very first relationship interaction from your caregivers or anything you saw on TV? Anybody? I can't really remember one. It seems like they were never in the same place. There was a lot of isolation. I don't ever remember an interaction, which is why I had to learn all of it the hard way. So this, you are imprinted. There are relationship imprints going on in your body. Also, you have money imprints and you have self-worth imprints. By the time you're 5, you'll know exactly what you do with money. And it's not because you took investing classes. And by the time you're 5, you also know how you're going to show up in a relationship, not because you took the course. It is programmed into you by default because from 0 to 7, you're in a hypnotic state. So for me, what I learned was disconnection, super shiny object syndrome, no solid foundation, chaos, conflict, abandonment, immense mental and emotional pain, rinse, repeat. I don't know if anyone else had that blueprint. That was my blueprint. So whatever is observed from 0 to 7 by our caregivers is what we are going to have imprinted by default. This is called a karmic cycle. By the time you're 7 years old, all of your karma, and when I say karma, I mean whatever is automatically going to come from you, the manifestation, what comes to you by default. By the way, we're all manifesting all the time. If you're not getting what you want, it's because your programming is different from your conscious mind. That's all it means. There's a conflict. So whatever your karmic cycle is will repeat, and it's usually a 7-year pattern. Now there's an exception. There may be a 9-year pattern. That's a spiritual contract. That's a little different. Funny thing is, right before this, I did my 9-year cycle, and I'll be darned if it's not on point. I can share later if you want. It's not really relevant. I mean, it is very relevant, but I was like, I'm curious. It's uncanny. So I projected my stuff onto Trent. He projected his onto me. And after this happened, our relationship became a complete dumpster fire. We were both right and wrong at the same time. We both accepted BS that was unacceptable in life because we didn't know any difference. And then we dragged it into the middle of our relationship, which was toxic all the way around. So both of us felt unsafe, threatened, and wronged, just like we did in childhood. But it doesn't seem the same because the details are different. And that's where filters come in. When I say filters, whatever your programming is, everything coming in, taste, sight, touch, smell, sound. Did I say them all? They will be skewed by whatever is stored in your programming. Chaos, peace, conflict, happiness, harmony. It will all be filtered through that. So both of us, what we knew is if we didn't do our healing inside the relationship, we just repeat the karmic cycle. So it became one of those decisions of, do we go through the pain of separation or do we go through the pain of trying to heal this crap? Because it was not pretty. So now for the most part, we're each other's safe haven. It did not happen overnight. This was 3 to 4 years of just back and forth and back and forth of, oh my God, why are they doing this? Like what, like the whole WTF moment. We both wanted to kill each other. And it's interesting. We were both going through a lot of money stuff at the same time. It's like, so interesting. So now we have fun. We play, we express, we experience, dream, and play together, but we still have our moments, and it sucks when it happens. And after those moments, we come closer, but it never feels like it's going to happen in the heat of the moment. It feels like, oh, this is divorce time. That's literally what it still feels like. Actually, it happened about 4 days ago, to be real. So I'm like, oh, perfect timing. Here we go. Wow. Why? So here's the thing. We're both safe enough for us to hit all of our stuff that's ready to heal. Before we created what we have now, we walked through all the fires of our own personal hell by ourselves and then together. And I don't know which is worse. It just felt different. So at that point, we were both each other's personal villains without meaning to be, until we both did our own deep work and brought that version ourselves to the relationship. We both had to change individually and then come back together. So there was like times that we were apart. I think in the first 2 years, we spent 14 months apart. We couldn't even be under the same roof. It was explosive. So there was a ton of healing we had to do individually. And then like one person would be ahead and the other would be ahead. And it would be like, wow, why are they not moving faster? So all the things, right? But everyone's on their own timeline and there's free will. I will say taking the leap is worth it. And here's the thing, expect miracles and take no shit ever. Especially as a woman. Trent probably has stuff to say about the men, but we're talking about women right now. So is everybody ready to play all out now that I got that context out there? Cool, cool. All right, this is a ginger beer, by the way. It's not a real beer. It's a ginger beer. So just so you know. All right. So Everybody here is in some kind of relationship. Okay, before we really get into this, everybody stop, close your eyes, take a deep breath in through your nose and out through your mouth. Breathe in connection and harmony. Breathe out anxiety, frustration, and care. Breathe in wholeness and choice. Breathe out worry and fear. Breathe in authenticity and breathe out having to be anything or anywhere. Breathe in, breathe out. And everyone, put yourself in the beautiful position to receive whatever it is that your spirit is here to receive today. Leave the rest. Feel free to reject any of this. Take only what fits. Take only what resonates. Leave the rest. Okay. Thank you, everyone. We're all in some kind of relationship, whether it's a friendship, family, or with yourself. The self is the biggest one. That is the relationship blueprint for every other relationship in your life. So it is impossible to do life alone. Relationship and connections literally need. Your nervous system has to calibrate off other people. You either have to offload other energy by connection or you have to get other energy from other people. It's a give and take thing. People actually die from disconnection. That thing that happened 4 years ago, that's the result of cutting off relationships with people. Talking about the C word in case anybody is like, what are you talking about? I would say it, but I don't know the sensitivity of people here. I want to be respectful to everyone. But here's the thing. If it has a name, we have a relationship with it. If it's a tangible thing, a person, a place, or a thing, you've got a relationship with it. You've got a relationship with people, with money, with yourself, with the idea of things, with the idea of your identity. There's a relationship with literally everything. And this is the law of one, meaning we are all connected. Anybody here ever been thinking of someone and then they get a phone call from the person or text or message on Facebook? Yeah, we're all connected. We are literally all like mainlined into the same energetic field of the universe, whether it's universe, spirit, God, Krishna, Buddha, like whatever the verbiage is, we are literally all connected. I learned about this in chiropractic school. The only difference between a corpse and a live human is the energetic spirit. I don't remember the verbiage. They called it electricity. Like the soul was diminished to electricity, but it was very like clinical, right? So the electricity that keeps you alive, that powers your soul in your body, that starts from the ethers is gonna ignore that. That is what connects us all. Are we still good, Erica? I see messages popping up. Is everything okay? Cool, thanks. All right.
Just wonderful commentary.
Oh, I love it. Thank you all for commenting. I love you all. Please feel free to comment. I'm fire hosing. There are places to share, but I want to get through this unless somebody has some burning stuff. And I have a gift at the end. So here's the thing about navigating relationships. They are beautiful when they're done well. And here's my personal guideline that I follow. Now, this is a tiny version. I have a big long list, but this was the mini version. Take accountability for what is yours, how you show up, and what baggage you bring. If you got a body, you got baggage. There's no way around it, period. Understand your needs, communicate them, and know the other person can say no, whoever it is. Leave room for growth, evolution, and autonomy, always. Negotiate and renegotiate boundaries and needs regularly. This can happen daily, y'all. And this is where some people get real panty wadded up. You can renegotiate these things daily because we evolve quickly. Some of the people who get stuck and don't evolve have one set of rules that they follow, and that's called neurorigidity, and it leads to aging fast, by the way. So the more you evolve, the more you're going to expand, the new boundaries are going to form, period. 5, continue to do your own work even when things are going well. Special note, this applies to both parties. Now, where this can get skewed, there's 2 ways it can get skewed. One person can try to do all the work for the other person and vice versa. One of the two parties may try to do all the work, or one of the two parties may expect the other person to do all the work, not consciously. Again, this is learned in childhood, the way we show up. There's lots of Carl Jung quotes talking about them. I'm going to save you the Carl Jung quotes right now. So most people are terrified of being their authentic selves, who they really are. That is the number one thing I hear. And like, I even hit it too. It's like when I discover a new thing about myself, I'm like, oh, I don't even know how I feel about this. How's somebody else going to feel about this? Who's going to receive this? Like, so most of us humans are terrified to be seen just as we are, for fear of rejection or conflict leading to rejection. This originated in the tribes where if you're shamed or rejected, this isn't so like prevalent now in survival, but back in the tribal times, that's still written in our DNA, that can be removed, by the way. Being shamed or shunned means you're going to be cast out and probably die. Have y'all seen that show Alone, where people live out in the wilderness by themselves to see how long they can make it? Yeah, if they didn't have a rescue team, they're not going to make it past like 6 months max, my opinion. So that is why in our DNA, it is so deeply rooted to not be rejected and not have conflict. The crazy thing is conflict is how we get deeper and more intimate, which goes completely against survival mode, by the way. I know survival mode and nervous system regulation is hot all over the internet, and this is why. So the safe option is to not risk showing up as who you really are or hiding parts of yourself. Trent is actually the first person. I had this idea in my mind, and if anyone else had an idea kind of like this, please raise your hand. But I had this idea that I could never share the woo-woo side of me with anyone, and it was just a given that I would just have to show like the clinical and intellectual side or the physical side, but like the woo-woo spiritual side had to stay over here in a box because it was so crazy. Erica, you? Oh, Dana. Oh, Dana, do you have a question? Or were
No,
you ready?
I was just agreeing and raising my hand.
Oh, I love it. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, ma'am. So I had the fear that I had to box who I really was at a very deep level for a very long time. And the crazy thing is, this isn't crazy. I'm going to give y'all some synchronicities. Trent is the first person that I could ever actually open up to about that. And that was the one thing that kept me going through all the craziness that I really wanted to leave from. It was like, I'll go ahead and tell you, from the beginning of my life, I knew there was one person for me. I was going to get married once, which most people are like, how can you know that? I'm like, I don't know. I just know. I also know the body wasn't made wrong the first time. So this is before I went to school. So, you know, when we're connected, we have knowings that nobody can take us away from us unless we're conditioned away from it. Every one of you has knowings. Does anybody know your knowings? Awesome. So perfect. We all have knowings. Mine was I had one person, and there was a time in life when I was like, wow, my person's doing some really dumb stuff, but I can just feel it. Because like I was on date after date after date, it just wasn't right. I just knew. And then when he and I finally got together, we timelined it, and sure enough, he like, hopefully he's okay with me sharing this. I'll hear about it after. If he's not, married the same person twice. It was super like traumatic, staying in things way too long, just like I was doing all the things. I was like, yeah, I knew it. I actually, without knowing him, heard his name over a loudspeaker, watched him be concussed, and stopped the entire horse show. Didn't even know who he was. Found this out later. But we had been in the same like physical circles for 20 years without knowing it, by the way. So anyway, side note. But yeah, most people were like, Caroline, how do you know these things? So I just started keeping my mouth shut about my knowings, because I was like, wow, everyone thinks I'm crazy for knowing these things. But this is why the safe option is to not risk showing up as yourself, because what are other people going to think? How are they going to judge me? And like, what box are they going to put me in? And how is this going to change things? When there was a time when I got injured and stopped CrossFitting, I lost 15 friends at once that I thought were actual friends. Turns out they were CrossFit friends. So I don't know if anyone else has experienced this. It's nothing against CrossFit, but that's like, I was like, wow, what I think a friend is and what they do is obviously different. So it was crazy. It was like I was shunned out of a community just for hurting myself. So, here we go. Most people are most terrified of conflict in a relationship. Now, Trent says for men, it's different. totally agree with what he said, but I was like, babe, this is for women. But men are here too. And I agree too. Men's biggest fear is vulnerability, and women's biggest fear is to have their experience gaslit or have conflict. There was a post that a friend sent, Tiffany, I believe she's here. I just can't see her face. It was spot on. It was like, the woman's problem is when she's not seen, heard, and validated when she hits her bottom and has all the yucky emotions and has her reality gaslit, and the man defends himself. And the men's biggest problem is feeling criticized, blamed for everything, and like he's never good enough. And y'all, that doesn't start with us. That started a long time ago. I believe this is deep generational garbage that needs to go from genetics. And men have been programmed that they're never good enough, and women have been programmed that our reality isn't real. That's my opinion. I don't know how everybody feels like about that, but sharing my opinion. So at any moment when conflict happens, there's an option to go deeper or move away. The fact is, intimacy deepens through resolving conflict. So how we respond to conflict begins with the programming we receive from the ages of 0 to 7. That karmic cycle again. By the way, bones ossify at between 18 and 21 years, and that's when the social years, the modeling years have completed. I have a theory that that's when additional karma locks in the body to be resolved later in life. And then there's a Saturn thing, I'll save that. So if our reality from ages 0 to 7 didn't provide us with what we needed, it's going to show up in adult relationships. It's impossible not to. This is the design. We don't have to like it. I don't really like it. Like, why? But when activated, we revert back to what was experienced in those moments as a child, as in whatever programs we learned at that age that the thing happened. This is why we can see someone acting like a 2-year-old. Anybody seen anybody act like a 2-year-old? Anybody acted like a 2-year-old? I have had my moments. So that's because this was the moment the program was written. And the oldest programs cause the most problems, period. Most people think that's a whole different frame. I'm going to save it. So this happens for a few reasons. Ultimate reason for romantic relationship, in my opinion. Now I've heard Mass and Kip say is to heal all of your old shit, like all of your old trauma that never had space to heal in your original relationship with caregivers. I feel like it's also to meet all of yourself, especially the shadow, for healing. Trent described this beautifully. We were traveling and he was like, it was surprising to me because I don't know how many of you know about astrology. So the Chiron line is the wounded healer, right? So I just got into astrocartography and got really mad that I live on my Saturn line and I have the most of my life, and I was angry about it. Once I got over that, he and I were talking about him loving the desert that was right on his Chiron line. He was like, I don't know, maybe it's like a relationship. It's amazing at first and you're lusting after it. And then once you're in, all this like everything reveals itself. But I was like, wow, that's a pretty good explanation. So when the shadow comes up for healing, this is where the power dynamics turn up. If one or both people are triggered, an unresolved wound has been touched and activated, and this shows up in all sorts of ways. Usually the emotions are going to overwhelm a human. By the way, if they last longer than 60 seconds, they're rooted in a belief and a trauma, and the person projects their pain all over the person they love the most. Now, this isn't what always happens. Sometimes it's internalized, which is where physical symptoms will pop up. Learned this over and over and over in my chiropractic office and with myself. If you're an internalizer, it will turn into health problems. If you're an externalizer, it will hurt other people. So Gabor Mate talked a lot about expressives versus internalizers and what happened to health over time. Women tend to be internalizers, men tend to be expressives. And he studied immune problems with internalizing versus expressing anger. And his study said that the women would 80% of the time get an autoimmune disorder and the men would just have anger issues. Now, that's not a blanket, that's not a cut and dry thing. That's what he talked about. I believe it was The Myth of Normal, or his other book that I read. So great author, check him out if you're like, hey, what does this look like in males and females from a clinical side? So many people try to tiptoe around someone's triggers. This is usually an internalizer. We'll try to tiptoe. Sometimes externalizers do if they're anxious and avoidant, but it's like walking around a landmine. It's typically to avoid a backlash or conflict or potentially leading to relationship rupture. So holding the true version of ourselves back in some way is the biggest problem. And here's the thing. There's a lot of talk about truth and what's your truth and what's my truth and what is the truth and how many truths are there. Yes, 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 and yes. In any relationship, when a truth is spoken, another person can be inspired or triggered. The ultimate healing hack is to lean into the triggers. This is where the gold is, and this is how you heal all your shit. That being said, another person's truth may be skewed by all of the unhealed pain they're still carrying from the past. Those filters. They may have some chocolate covered turd filters going on that they're just covering all their poo up with chocolate or vanilla or whatever flavor they like. And then it comes out to play when the pressure's on. So one's internal experience does not make their truth true for the other person. There's a lot of truth in that sentence. I might need to say that again. Does that resonate with everyone? I'm going to say it again. One person's truth, whatever their internal experience is their truth. That does not make their internal experience true for the other person. This is one way projection happens. By having a lot of feelings that have nothing to do with the current circumstance or the other person and exploding them onto the other person, somehow wrapping them up in it to make it relevant for now. Because the conscious mind, the prefrontal cortex wants everything to make sense, and trauma does not make sense. We're going to talk about the amygdala here in a second. So we don't need to be the judge or the jury, but the other person's experience does need to be validated. Side note, as long as they are not projecting on you, which can hurt people. Words carry frequency, and so does intention. So do emotions. I talk about that in the Amygdala Reset Accelerator, which is going to be named Emotional Mastery for the Entrepreneur. Pretty cool. There's some people here who went through that I want to talk here at the end. So there's limits. When unresolved stuff comes up in romantic relationships, things can get totally off balance. Also in business and with parents and with children. They usually just show up first in romantic relationships, by the way. And if you don't have one, next it's kids, then it's parents, then it's friends, businesses somewhere in there as well. But it usually looks more like money versus people. So one person may become more like a parent, another may become more like a child. And this is where needs and expectations come in. Most problems start due to an unmet need. And the longer a need goes unmet, this is where people start to decide they're going to separate, divorce, do the infidelity thing, do whatever hurts the other person just to try to meet their own need from a place of pain versus, hey, I need to communicate this. And just because something's communicated doesn't mean the other person receives it. So this is super complex, y'all. I'm trying to get through all the heavy stuff. Is everybody doing okay? Is everybody doing good? Okay. So
Just Carol, amazing commentary in the comments. Everyone is resonating with you.
I am so glad. Thank you for sharing. I'm like, okay, I hope I'm not fire hosing too much. I hope I'm not like in drone mode, but like, yeah, okay, good. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. All right. So this stems from childhood as a result of caregivers not meeting the child's needs. From 0 to 7, your parents' sole job, other than your parents or caregiver's sole job, other than keeping you alive, is to calibrate your nervous system and teach you how to get in, stay in a relationship, and how to feel your worth just by existing. The first thing that can happen in this is prove your worth to me, child, in whatever way, shape, or form, whether it's achievement, whether it's live the dream that I didn't get to have, whether it's don't outshine your brother, whether it's be seen and not heard, whether it's the parent parents and caregivers' job is to reflect the child's reality back accurately. Anyone here ever fall off a bicycle, scrape their knee, and the parent's like, you're fine? That's gaslighting, by the way. The emotional reality has just been gaslit. That's one example. Anybody here ever do something that hurt yourself and the parent was like, yeah, I shouldn't have done that, huh? Maybe you'll think next time. That's what starts, wow, I have to figure everything out first or I'm going to get screwed. AKA perfectionism. I actually watched, my husband and I watched the Menendez brothers documentary. It was actually really good. We saw everything at the end. This stood out to me. This happens more than you would think. One of the little boys, like, you know, the trust fall thing where like you see the child jump into dad's arms, dad catches him. Dad held his arms out, encouraged his son to jump in his arms. Son is like 3 or 4 or something, jumps to the dad moves back, child falls, hurts himself, starts crying, and the dad says, never trust anyone. That is how you get really screwed up and trust no one in life. There's a lot of this that happens, however mild or extreme, never having physical affection for whatever reason, you never get your nervous system calibrated, period. So you're always searching for what to feel. That was me. No touch, no physical affection, like no, none of that. It was performance, perform, pass the tests from like 0. I think I was even spanked for crying at like, as an infant. I heard that story. So the only way a baby can alarm to a need being met, needing to be met, is to cry. Some people I like, and this is not, but like, yes, mothers have their thing, right? But like a baby can only calibrate off of mom. A baby has no idea where its nervous system starts and the mom stops. It literally, that's why skin to skin is so important. So if a parent is angry, if mom had problems during pregnancy, whatever hormones baby was surrounded with, that's going to be the baseline. And then what pushes that in even further is what happens after baby was born. What intention was baby born with? Was it an oopsie pregnancy? Was it a cover up? Was it, oh, I wanted a boy instead of a girl? My dad wanted a boy. I tried to do boy things my whole life. Couldn't get into my feminine. It was a problem. Still is. So whatever happens with parents and caregivers up front is exactly how the child will learn how to be in life. Got on kind of a tangent there. My apologies, but so that being said, if there's any unhealed trauma, a person will learn to disconnect from their true nature and their gifts in order to have their needs met, just like they did in childhood. So those beautiful gifts you had that a parent didn't have time for, or maybe you talked a lot, that's the gift of communication. Maybe you knew exactly what was wrong, that's the gift of knowing. Maybe you had a gift of knowing exactly what you needed to do that made no sense to everyone else, that's channeling. If any of that didn't resonate and was cut off, well, now your gift is cut off, period. And you have to reconnect, and it's painful because what you learned as a child is I have to disconnect from myself to get love. And if I reconnect from myself, I'll be rejected and die. That's what it feels like in the nervous system. Don't know if anyone else has ever felt that. I sure did. Felt super painful to draw a boundary. So reflecting, projecting, and hitting your shit. All right, not doing too bad. Don't know what slide number 32 out of 72. We'll get it. We'll get it, y'all. We'll get it. In a relationship, someone is either reflecting your truth back to you or projecting their internal world onto you. Only 2 options. Knowing the difference is key when picking your battles and setting boundaries. It's important to hold space for you in the relationship and understand the role you play. Because what can happen, especially in a household from 0 to 7, if the whole family was enmeshed, if one parent controlled the emotional environment of everyone, if everyone had to like bend over backwards to make one parent happy so everybody could be okay, this is how you're going to show up. That is not going to work long term, by the way. It will also not work because that's how you would do business. This is where for about 15 years, I was a chiropractor. I'm still a chiropractor, but I don't do the hands-on practice anymore. It was a very do for. What was happening is I was attracting some people who are very proactive, but I was attracting a lot of people who just wanted a Band-Aid and weren't going to do anything to change elsewhere. So I was overworking my body to make up for what they were doing when they were not in front of me. They were expecting me to put, like, words were, I know you're going to pull off a miracle, while they went and trashed whatever, in my words, trash, but like did whatever they did, and then expected a 30-minute appointment or hour-long appointment to fix the other, whatever 24 times 6 is really 7, 20, that's a lot of hours. Zero responsibility until they're, so, but I was trained to do that. That's what I was trained to do, is sacrifice myself so that everyone else can feel better. And that's how I got my validation. Really hard to break that, by the way. So if you were, here's the thing, you're going to get your shit. Here's what this looks like. This goes for romantic, parents, children, business, especially business. If you're never taught boundaries, you're going to have boundary busters. You might be a boundary buster too. You're going to be a boundary buster and get boundary busters, and it's going to piss you off. Or like exhaust you. One of the two, probably both, honestly. If you don't know your needs, they're not going to get met. This includes corporate stuff. Corporate is, Erica can speak to this highly. Corporate is, they will take everything they can if you do not say hell no. And even then, there's a protocol for getting rid of you slowly. I heard it on one of the calls I was on. I was like, wow, slowly apply pressure until they can't meet their job requirements and get rid of them. Interesting. There's a protocol to get rid of someone who will stand for their needs in corporate. Pretty messed up. So if you don't know your standards, AKA the hard lines, like the bottom line, like, is anyone here familiar with AA and Adult Children of Alcoholism and the adult CODA, like Codependent Association? It's called a bottom. Codependents have to choose their bottom because they could literally suffer forever. By the way, most humans are really good at suffering for a very long period of time. That's what we're taught, especially here. You have to choose your bottom. And if you don't know what that is, AKA the bare minimums that someone will treat you like, they're going to be trampled all over, and you'll figure it out by not being able to take it anymore one day. All this is important because if you don't ask the right questions, you're going to be sold a dream, or you're going to sell yourself a dream because you were taught to sell you were taught to do that and expect the other person to overgive or overgive yourself. One of those. If you can't see red flags or don't know how to spot unhealthy behavior, you're going to miss the writing on the wall and learn a lot of hard lessons figuring it out. That was me. When Trent and I got together, it was like we had a bouquet of red flags. I couldn't see them because I had mine. I'm like, oh, well, let's just combine them and it's a happy party. But then we like did the conscious work, but I couldn't see it because I was never taught them. I was taught, grow up, prep yourself to find it. Like, I was raised by an aunt who was like 60 something years old, and she tried to put me into cotillion. She made me start playing the cello at 4. I was basically being groomed to be a little Southern belle, like way back, I was like, this doesn't fit. No, this is not me. But like, even having muscles as a female was looked down upon. So like, just me existing the way I naturally am was frowned upon. So I was like, wow, and that was done to so many people through so many generations coming from somewhere. Programming that started way back in the day. Most people's solution is to leave the relationship, sometimes for good reason, but only to experience the same thing again. And there's a reason for this. The deep-rooted stuff within the self hasn't been healed. I will tell you, the only reason I have done the growth I have is because of Trent. I would never have done it. I did a lot of healing work by myself, but there's only so much you can do by yourself without someone else magnifying everything you can't see yourself. And he did that for me. So when we were at our worst, and I'm pretty sure I did that for him too, I realized if I don't do the hard work, I'm going to find this exact same thing elsewhere, no matter where I went. So if I didn't at least do my best to heal everything I could to at least have a 100% observer perspective, I'm just going to find it somewhere else. And there's a way to know when you're there, by the way. So the more work I did on myself, the less I was triggered by bad behavior. And I got to the point where I could observe everything from an objective level, like watching a movie. The best thing that worked for me was imagining if I had a child, what would I want her to do? And I say her because I'm a female. Now, like, imagining a little boy, I would be imagining, how would I want this man to treat my daughter? Or how would I want to be treated by a man? Or, how would I want him to treat someone else? So, I started to ask myself, okay, if this is important to me, or if I want something different, how do I show up differently? Because he's doing the same thing. And y'all, I know he's thinking the same thing in his mind. I can only speak from my perspective and the woman's perspective. So I also knew if I asked for my needs to be met and he said no, what am I going to do about it? Because he has that right. Period. And so that opens up the question, how do I do my work to get what I deserve? So let's say you decide to do the deep work. I always start with a 7 or 9 year cycle. Again, 7 is karmic, 9 is spiritual. 7 is based on, and if you're not into astrology, no big deal. But if you're like, astrology's crap, which I thought it was until I dated 3 guys that had a birthday 3 days from each other, and we all broke up for the same reason, and they were all Sagittarius. That's when I was like, oh, okay, probably relevant. Started looking into it, I was like, wow, okay, so the moon impacts our cycles. It impacts the tide, where a lot of water in everyone's body. We're clearly impacted by everything out there, whether we believe it or not. So, Uranus and Saturn is the karma planets, by the way. And when I say karma, I don't mean good or bad. It's just what needs to come up and heal for you to do life differently. Most people do this the hard way. I did it the hard way for a very long time. The other thing I do is look at, like, there's a time where you get down to 0 or negative numbers. What was the relationship of the caregivers from 0 to 7? If you were to know, most people bypass this because they think it doesn't matter. And that is your blueprint programming. That is what matters. Every time I do deep work with someone, there is always stuff that can be related back to the blueprinting that's showing up in life at a different level. It's like peeling onion layers back, right? Sometimes healing really sucks because it's like, when does this ever freaking end? Hey, Christina, I got a question.
Yes, I'm wondering, my cycle, it seems to be every 5 years. Is that possible?
It can be. It's not a hard and fast rule. What I would do is I would almost look up like what planet coincides with 5 years, or I'd start getting creative, but I'm curious about that too. Yeah.
Thank you.
No worries at all. Thank you for the question. So looking, just take that. Oh, there you go. Oh no, how do I go back? Crap. I don't remember what it said. How do I go back without? Yeah, there we go. So the question became, what am I going to do about it? Doing the deep rooted work. Great, here we go. So look at the environment you grew up in, because this is where you're programmed, period. And it might not look exactly the same. Like, if you didn't see a lot of chaos, maybe you picked up on complete isolation and disconnection. So everyone doesn't see horrible things. Some people pick up on isolation, abandonment from people who should have been there that weren't, and being passed off to people who seem to care, but no one really keeps you. That was also me. So there's a million ways this can go, y'all. The good news is, once one person begins to heal, the spiritual and karmic contracts are going to change. This is not the easy part. There's 3 things that can happen here if you're in partnership. And when I say partnership, I mean romantic, with parents, with children, with coworkers, with clients. Contracts take work to rewrite and agree on. The first person that'll happen when a container or a contract is reset, the first thing that can happen is the person can be like, oh yeah, that's a great idea. I've never experienced that. I don't know if anybody else has. Amazing if you have. I feel like it can get there with 2 very conscious people. The second thing that can happen is the other person's like, nope, this is me. I've stayed, like, you do that crazy thing. And the third thing that can happen is almost a not like violent opposition, not violent, but like anger, projection, all the things, because now the contract has been changed, even if you're meeting your own needs and not hurting the other person. And what that can mean is you might have been meeting a need for the other person that was inappropriate, that they should have been meeting themselves, or that you should have never had to do yourselves because they're not doing their work. So 7 years is the karmic cycle, 9 years is the spiritual cycle. Again, it's not hard and fast. When I first did my 7 or 9 year cycle, there were like 1 or 2 years here or there that seemed crazy, and there was so much, but there was a pattern that showed itself. There's a very clear pattern that showed itself today when I did this. It was wild. So the more work you do, the easier it is to do that. But sometimes it might seem like, wow, there is so much to do. I don't even know where to start. That's okay. That's the best time to start. Really, sooner than later is the best time to start. So how can someone do the deep-rooted work? 1, take the observer position. What this means is step outside of your body, take all your emotions out of it. I don't mean like disconnect from them. I mean, look at it as if you're all movie characters and what's happening here. It's almost like if you're in a class learning about the scenario, what would you take notes on? What would you write down? So check what role everyone's playing. Kind of like watching a movie. And if you're stuck in a role that seems inescapable, like you're doing all the things, you're trying to reason with someone, you're trying to you're doing everything you can, and you keep having empathy, and you keep overextend, whatever you keep doing. If the role is inescapable, now you become part of the problem by choosing to stay in the inescapable dynamic. This is called enabling, by the way. I did this for a very long time. You cannot heal for them. And here is where I like to ask the question of, if I choose to not do this thing that I can deal with, but that I really don't want to deal with, and that's really annoying and actually hurts me, but I can deal with it because I love them, what lesson am I keeping them from, and what expansion am I keeping from their soul? What am I not letting them learn? What lessons and growth am I keeping from them, essentially? So the only way to change the contract is to truly choose yourself, which looks different for everyone. And it might not be the popular thing. And more than not, it is going to be the unpopular thing because everyone is different. So ask the question, how can I do that bold thing? How can I do that? Where will I stay if I go? What will I do? What's going to happen next? Do I leave? Don't I leave? Do I stay? Do I draw a boundary? Do I have a hard conversation? Do I get rid of the client? Do I say no to that money? Do I stand firm and let them get what does it look like? My guess is everyone in here has something going on in their mind that's that tumultuous thing that you're like, that one thing that keeps annoying me. What do I do about it? There's going to be a lot of what ifs. And if you're gonna what if all the spirally things, I'm talking about the downward spiral, which is where we typically go. Abraham Hicks teaches the upward spiral, but that's pretty tough and can also be bypassing. Like if there's stuff stored down in that body that needs to come out, no amount of positive thinking is gonna outweigh it, because the positive thinking is 10% and the body is the other 90%. When they're in a tug of war, like 90% is gonna win, period. So if you're gonna what if in the negative, go ahead and what if in the positive. What if you finally choose yourself, fully do it, and everything works out in your favor? What if all those things you've been trying to manifest suddenly flood into your experience when you do that one thing that you don't see how it'll happen? What if everything you've ever dreamed of as a child just magically happens overnight when you do the thing that feels like death? That's called taking the bold move. And I don't know about y'all, but the best movies out there that are true are the people who didn't know how it was going to happen, and it happened anyway. Was it Aaron Brockovich? That movie, that one. What else? The Will Smith movie, Pursuit of Happiness. Y'all remember that one? I mean, there was some serious hustle in there, but he didn't quit. Let's see what else. There were several of them, but those crazy stories that are real, I love those, because it's proof to me that when someone doesn't even know any better than to not do the thing, it usually works out. Typically makes the people mad who think everything through before moving. I was one of those people. So what would life look like after you take that bold move for yourself, whatever it is? Describe the possibilities, how your life could change. It's going to look different for everyone. And once you've observed, here's the thing. Making a rash decision, I never suggest anyone make a rash decision, but I do suggest someone go into data collection mode. Meaning, be in the situation, collect data, see how you feel, see how they show up, see how you show up, without trying to manipulate anything, without trying to positively impact anything, just let it happen. This is where you let the ship sink. I think my line was, I had to learn how to let the ship sink and know I could swim. So once you've observed and attained enough info, it is bold decision time. And as humans, we usually have all the reasons why it's not the right time to do this thing. Anybody else relate? The pain of Tony Robbins did this one. I believe someone else did too. Usually humans will not move the needle until the pain of staying the same outweighs the pain of change. And that is the difference between the people who stay stuck in cycles longer than they have to and the people who just keep freaking moving forward boldly when it doesn't make sense to anyone else while they keep going. So another way to think about this, if you're watching a movie with the same situation with characters playing the roles, what would you be rooting for the character in your position to do? Like if there's a Hollywood movie playing out and you're watching all the characters, the one in your position, what would you be like? I don't know about y'all. I get really into movies and then I'm like trying to get the characters to do the thing I want them to do because I know how it's supposed to work out. I know how I want it to work out for them. What would you want the character to do? If you had a child in the same position, what would you hope your child chose to do if they came to you and asked for help? That thing is usually what you need to do. But get ready for tests. The universe will test you. So there's a universal test of 3. I love this. I mean, I don't love it, but I love knowing it. So the universe is going to make sure you're serious about world change because everything is energy and to reroute energy is expensive. Anybody ever get sick? Like with the flu? Anyone ever had the flu? Yeah, it takes, how do you feel? Super energetic, ready to go conquer the world? No, you're on the couch wanting to do nothing, like trying to sleep as long as you can, because it's metabolically expensive. It's energetically expensive to fix I was about to say to fix yourself. I was about to say a bad word in the best way ever. It is energetically expensive to heal and to change how energy is going. All your cells have to come in and clean things out and repair things because of neglect or whatever it was or what you were exposed to. Like it takes energy. Same thing for the universe. To redirect how energy flows, you're going to be tested because it wants to make sure it's getting it right. And this wasn't just a whim. So when you're being tested, here's what you might find yourself saying. Well, that didn't work out the way I wanted it to. Guess it wasn't meant to be. Why does this keep happening? I keep doing the thing. I thought when I set a boundary or when I had the conversation, it'd be easy. This is your world being tested before the new reality actually kicks in, and it's gonna happen 3 times. Sometimes more, but 3 big times. And after those 3 big times, it's like, oh, this is easy. I know this. So the first test is for your neurology. It takes a ton of energy to reroute the hardwiring in your body. Neurological connections are actually hard structures. So to break those down and rework them, the universe got to know you're serious, and so does your body. It's like, hey, look, are you sure? Let me give you time to think about this because I got to get the work. Another reason why, has anybody ever done the hard thing and then felt horrible later? I have. Like energy down. It's like, oh my God, what have I done? Like, yes, emotions, but also the body has to down regulate all of its energy output and actually go to the place where all of the emotions were stored and pull it up, which is why you're going to feel that and rebuild the tracks. So most people can't get through this because they don't understand it. The second test is for the universe because it takes a lot of energy to reroute what's being brought to you by default from the ethers. So the universe is going to be like, all right, we're going to make sure that we're good to go. Their body made it. Let's make sure that like, we're going to test it once more. And the third test is the free will test. This is to see if you're actually going to act in accordance with your free will to get the thing and to keep the thing once you have it. Most people are terrified of the other person's free will test because this is where you have a chance to get out, specifically in relationships. or specifically in partnerships, clients, romantic relationships, like it shows up the most intensely in romantic partnerships and with parents, because those are the strongest connections, and children, of course. So it's the free will test that gets us. And here's what activates the 4 archetypes. And here's where the amygdala comes in, y'all. So let me tell you what the amygdala is. Has anybody heard of it? Anybody heard of it? I'm going to tell you about it. Awesome. So it is a little bitty organ in the brain. It's not real big. Its sole job is to store trauma in fragments that don't make sense, and to remind you anytime you come across a potential fragment that may fit the picture of what caused pain in the past. So this thing stores trauma in images, sound, smell, all the 5 senses, but in a fragmented manner. So what it does is whenever you come into contact, so let me back up. Has anyone here seen the movie Focus? It's the movie where there was a bunch of like subliminal messaging, and it wasn't obvious what the characters would happen, but at the end there were like subliminal messages speaking to the unconscious mind the whole way through. And the people, I don't even remember the plot line. It was something about a casino, but the people totally followed the whole plot line because the unconscious remembers everything. And the people like putting the subliminal messages to have the other people follow it. This is probably not making sense. Subliminal messages were planted that the unconscious mind follows because your unconscious mind remembers everything it's ever heard, seen, or experienced from 0 to now. Sounds crazy, but that's the 90% and the part of your brain that scientists say we don't use. That's linked in with the body. Also, the body has more neurology than the brain, actually. Your heart has more neurons than the brain. So there are more neurons in your whole body than your brain. The brain is actually the small potatoes. Anyway, when the amygdala is activated, it senses potential threat. Change equals potential threat. As soon as someone decides to change a contract, potential threat. I don't know how y'all respond to threat, but I don't welcome it with open arms. I usually like shut down, pull back, like, wait, I am not an open, loving, caring human. I'm like what's gonna happen? What do I need to plan for? Where's my escape? Some people go external with it. However you do, threat is what's gonna happen when change comes up. So here's the 4 archetypes. There's the child, the saboteur, the prostitute, and the victim. The child is not going to understand why any of this is happening. It's going to be clueless, not sure what happens, complete confusion, don't see the red flag coming, see the best in everyone while they're being treated poorly. They're usually disconnected from reality on what's actually happening while holding space for miracles to happen. Not seeing what's going on, living in la la land, or living in denial. That is the child. That's the shadow side of the child. The child does have a light side, but we're going to talk shadow first, because usually when change occurs, these archetypes are activated from the shadow side. And the saboteur is going to try to hold power. It's going to take all the wrong action, say mean things for no reason, try to assert power, and leave the relationship before the other person leaves them. It will disappoint themselves before the other person can disappoint them. Sitting in the unknown is so uncomfortable, they're going to pull the plug, and they're usually replaying what they experienced in childhood, and they will actually hurt the other person before the other person has a chance to hurt them. That's what the saboteur does. Sounds nasty, but it has a light side. The prostitute is going to give themselves away. They'll give everything of themselves just to keep the other person. It's called codependency in many relationships. It's going to give in hopes that the other person will give back, will give so much while abandoning themselves, sacrifice all their needs, and wants to give to the other person in hopes they're going to get what they also need and want. This happens because they want more love than they're getting, or because they're terrified the other person will leave. And this is learned in childhood, by the way. So the victim's not going to know how to get out. The victim doesn't see a way out of any situation, no matter how bad it is. They prefer the familiar hell over the unfamiliar heaven. Not consciously, this is unconscious. Let me drive this home. They know how to do the hell really well. Your body will trump the mind every time. Whatever your body's used to is going to take precedence. They usually have the mindset, it's better the devil you know than the devil you don't. This happens because of learned helplessness from childhood, potentially. I learned that. I learned how to be a victim and how to be helpless. It really sucks taking my power back. It was hard. Or that you have to be in pain to get attention and love. That was also me. They learn to get love by suffering. When I actually took care of myself, I was ignored and abandoned and kicked out of the house at 15. My cousin, who was 45, who couldn't get any of his shit together, was coddled. But I was a 15-year-old who was kicked out of the house. So it's like, I learned that if I help myself, I'm thrown to the streets, which is not helpful. Had to decondition that. So, which archetypes resonate most with you all? This is activity time. Anybody have an archetype that resonates most? I've been all of them. Everybody too scared to be like,
I
oh.
was going to say that I've been more than one. I think it's just been through phases.
I've been all of them. Yeah, I've been all of them for sure. And I think mine still activate, but I don't like, they're so much more subtle than they used to be.
Right.
But they have a light side too. I believe the light side's next. So they do serve a purpose. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Anybody else?
Definitely the prostitute.
Got it. Got it. Yep, that one's that person is so resourceful for everyone but themselves. Been there, done that.
Yeah, I'm a prostitute too, and my boyfriend's looking at me weird walking through the kitchen.
I love it. Yes, yes. I'm like, wow, I can figure anything out for anyone but myself. And I will find 50 grand for anyone but it's wild, y'all. It is wild what these archetypes will do. Anybody else?
So, yeah, if it's okay if a man chimes in.
I guess. Ladies, you're
Okay.
fine with it. We're fine with it. Perfect.
Yeah, I've definitely been all of them. But the one that stands out the most for me was saboteur, right? Because I would just burn the bridge, burn the house down, whatever, because I was raised that way. It didn't matter. I was going to lose everything anyway. So why not go ahead and create that reality? And so that was the one that stands out the most for me.
Thank you. Allison.
I'm sorry, I hit that
So-
by accident, but it
Oh,
was
good.
kind of perfect timing. I was just thinking that I've been all of them for sure, and probably a saboteur prostitute at the same time, like, wanting out of it, but also trying to give everything away and make everybody happy. But I'll cut the cord first before that backfires. So it's really interested, like a blended combination of all of those.
Yeah. That was a
Mhm.
great description. Like, man, I think I've done
Where
that.
is it?
Like,
You're saying.
yeah, Nubs.
Oh, okay, you can't hear me. Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
not gonna lie. We've been sitting here like we were chowing down on some sushi real quick, and while we were listening, um, as a man, I have, we've kind of went over some of my past before, and my mother was my biggest critic. She was the nurturing and the loving one, was not there for me. And so I lived, 33 years in just I hated myself. I hated everything about myself. I did for others to fill that void because I never felt adequate enough. I was worthless. I was constantly stuck. Like I was a prostitute, and um, it it is crazy to me with how much of a difference I can look in the mirror and see now, and work through and work past, and still have hiccups, but still see the brighter side of things.
I love that. I'm totally gonna have you come back on and share a little about that later. Yes, thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. We are actually about to be heading to the house right now, so I'm going to mute us again and keep on listening. But yeah,
Awesome.
we
Thank you.
will be here.
Love it. Love it. I hope the chat's blowing up with good stuff. Okay, we're gonna move on if everyone's cool with it. I'm gonna power through these. We got 20 left. Here we go. How do I take my power back? Earlier, I was gonna cut it off at 60, but I'm like, no, I think we need to know how to take our power back. I'm just gonna keep powering it. Is everybody good with that? Keep rolling. All right. How do we take that power back? Actually, let's talk about the light side of the child before I do this, because the child, when healthy, sees all of the joy and the positive and everything and has all of the creativity and imagination and wonder. That's the child. The child is what brings the joy to every situation and the fun. The saboteur knows when to pull the plug. The saboteur is like, yep, this ain't working. We're done here. That's the light side of the saboteur. They know when it's time to move on versus the person who just can't get up from the poker table. The prostitute knows what to do when she's got to freaking do it. The prostitute's like, all right, I know what I got to do, even though I don't want to do this long term. This is how it's going to be. I'm going to do what I have to do until. That's the prostitute. It's the light side of the prostitute. And what was the last one? Saboteur. Victim. The victim is the guardian of self-worth and creative. The victim is the creative. The victim can see everything outside of current circumstance. And they become the person who creates the world that no one else can imagine yet. But they are really good at dealing with a lot of bullshit. So when the victim steps into their power, they become the creative. When the child steps into their power, they become the happy, in wondered isn't a word, but like just living in wonderment and joy. When the saboteur steps into their power, they know how to pull the plug on shit that ain't working. When the prostitute steps into their power, they know when to do what's got to be done until the goal's got. So I wanted to come back and share the light side of those because they do have a purpose. They do. Every shadow has a purpose. All right. So the best way to take your power back, take radical responsibility. Reflect on the role you've chosen to play until now. And I say chosen, it may not even be a conscious choice, but it was a choice, even at the unconscious level, because that's what you were taught to do. Whatever was programmed into you and whatever was handed to you is not your problem. It's not your fault, but it is your responsibility to solve, because no one's going to do the healing for you. Wish it could happen. There are times I really wish I could hand my bullshit back to the people who handed it to me. There's actually a process for that. But I mean, like, hey, y'all, take back what you handed to me. Doing the healing is your responsibility. So taking radical responsibility means, instead of looking at the other person, looking through the eyes of your spiritual contracts. What did you sign before you got here that you don't remember signing? I fully believe we do, because that is the only thing that makes sense as far as what I've been through. I was told I'm working a lot of karma off before I was even into astrology. I'm like, well, that makes sense, because I would have never chosen this, and I've not chosen this, and it keeps happening to me from what I understand. So ask yourself, what do I need to do here, even if the other person won't like it? What do I need to do, even if everyone around me won't like it? What is it that I need to do? Because you have the knowing, it's in your body. Most of us think our way out of it, though. The conscious mind is one of those things that wants to understand everything before the magic happens, and it's the opposite. So looking at the situation from above the human level, like from a bird's eye view, consider, what lesson will the other person miss out on if I don't do the one thing that I know I need to do? And I don't know if y'all have experienced it, but there's usually a push-pull here. And there's a higher calling. There's like oh, I don't really want to do that thing, but I know I need to do that thing. Like my spirit knows, my body knows. Y'all know what I'm talking about? It's like the super inconvenient thing for the human and personality, but like there's a bigger knowing that's like, no, you got to do this or else. And the or else is really easy to ignore until it gets really bad. For me anyway. Then I'm like, I don't want any more lessons. I don't want any more karma. I'll just go. Let me just feel into this. So what lesson am I withholding from myself by not doing the one thing I need to do? And those lessons usually come back repetitively until they are learned and done differently. I literally did my 9-year cycle. It was about like, I'm not going to share. Well, I would share it here, but it would be a lot of backstory anyway, there's this cycle of tearing down to absolute simplicity over and over again every 9 years for me. And when I got down to the 0 or down to 5, that was the year my mom died. and left me with just left me. And I learned a whole bunch of money garbage that wasn't true and a bunch of self-worth stuff that wasn't true. And then past that, it was -4 when she actually went into chiropractic school, probably met my dad. And I think she conceived me to keep him. So it's like, these cycles are wild. It all matters. Removing them is key. So what this thing could be, the one thing could be the hard conversation. The question is, what's the one thing you've been avoiding? What is it that you need to do the most that you want to do the least? Or what is it that you must do that you don't want to? Most of us have that thing. And sometimes it's even like 20,000 other things before the thing. What I tell my clients is, okay, let's go by the rules of the universe. There's going to be one thing that's going to erase every other thing on your to-do list before you get to that one thing. What's the one thing? And so what we do is we go for the one thing so that we can save all the other work and just erase all the other problems, because that's how it works. Another thing to look at is, what have I been saying yes to and no to by default? As soon as you say yes to something, you're saying no to something else. When you say no to something, you're saying yes to something else by default. Like, for example, did I choose to stay in a relationship where I could see red flags? What am I choosing to ignore? What am I putting energy toward ignoring or dealing with or settling for? The golden rule here is actions are more important than words. There are so many times I've thought, well, they said this, but why did they do this? But they said this. My father told me he loved me every day, and he didn't show it with one single action that I remember. So I got pretty numb to that. And then I ended up craving everything I didn't get in childhood, which is like physical touch, affection, all the things. So anyway, finally, the one thing. When you know what this is, there's usually a fear of what happens next. Anyone feel that? Anyone like imagine that one thing that's like, oh, what's gonna happen next? Yeah, that's that amygdala kicking in before you can even take action. The worst case scenario is usually never as bad as we think it is. Most people don't do what they want to do because of fear of the unknown. Again, y'all hear those people who just start doing a thing and they break all the rules because they didn't know any better, and they do better than everybody else who studied the thing. They just don't know any better than to like be careful, or not to say be reckless, but those people just go for it. I'm trying to think. It's not a great example, but it's the guy that the Wolf of Wall Street guy. He probably knew better, but he didn't know many consequences and didn't care. So he had a grand old time doing stuff. I forget the name of that guy, but he wrote a book. It's pretty good. So playing the what if game is where most people get stuck. And this is where they try to consciously understand how to make the thing different. And here's the thing, your mind is only going to get information from your past. It cannot see the future. Your body has a knowing of where you need to go. Your mind can't fathom it typically. So if you're going to play the what if game, what if everything worked out better than you ever imagined? If you're going to what if spiral, definitely ask yourself, all right, now that I've done that, now that I've played worst case scenario, what if everything worked out? What does that look like? And if you have a block, more than likely you have secondary gain. Secondary gain means the pain of having the problem outweighs the gain of having the problem outweighs the pain of the problem. And this is usually the only time I cannot release anger, sadness, fear, guilt, or shame on a timeline from a body, because those emotions mean something. Here's an example. Anger is the boundary emotion. If you don't know how to set boundaries and you won't do it, you have to have anger to make you do it at some point. It's a requirement. So a lot of people try to get around doing these hard things. Sometimes the emotion is required to force you to. Does that make sense? That makes sense to everybody? It might be kind of out there. Best litmus test is to allow the other person to show up just as they are and watch. In their natural element, how do you interact with them? Do you even like each other? If you met each other on the street or in a coffee shop, would you want to keep talking to them? Or is this person's present filling a need for something that they shouldn't be filling? Is it this comes down to, is it attachment or connection? Assume, here's some rules here. Here's some rules I go by. Assume everyone is capable of what you're capable of. So many, I was so good at making excuses for the longest time and seeing the best in people who were not taking the best action. Like I was in love with, what's it called? Potential. Anyone ever here never fall in love with potential? Yeah, that is totally what I went for. Usually the wounded healers are like, give me a project. Give me a project I can change them and make their lives better and they'll love me even more. Not how it works. That's actually hoping someone will change and manipulation. Yeah, I was not happy when I found out about that. So if they know being on time is important to you and they continue to, and now there's like middle ground here too, but this is an example. If they know being on time is super important and they just keep not, or it's like keeps getting worse, or like if there's no conscious effort, it's a choice. Now it has to be communicated first, and there's extremes on both ends, right? Like some people keep moving the needle on what they want, and it's like you can't hit a moving target either. So this is very nuanced, but assume they have the capacity to meet your need. Same goes for every other need that exists. There's endless amounts of needs. Everyone's are different. So if the need has been communicated and it still isn't happening, and needs are going to have to be communicated over and over again because they change too. It's a choice. Assume it's a choice. But if you don't know, have what's the word? I can't word right now. Assume the best. Like if you don't know if it's a choice, ask. This is where you get to ask me like, hey, remember that thing we talked about? All right. So here's the thing. You're the blueprint for every relationship you've ever had and that you're going to have. What's happening inside of you determines what you see and experience with another. If you've got an internal peace and harmony, you're going to see the other person through that lens. If you have internal chaos, restriction, struggle, and friction, you're going to see the other person through that lens or the scenario through that lens. Any information or communication that comes in is going to be filtered through that lens by you. You can filter chocolate over the top of crap, or you can put crap over the top of cake. It can go either way. This all happens at the unconscious level. So here's where we make a commitment to ourselves. I think everybody needs to stand up real quick. We are almost done, y'all. Stand up, shake it out a little bit. I'm feeling it. Do crazy things. Move around. There we go. Okay. All right, great. Here's where we're gonna make a commitment to yourself. Thank you for doing that with me. Everybody feel better? I feel a little bit better. All right. It is important to your soul to keep the promises you make to yourself. Take this opportunity to make a commitment to yourself to do the one thing. And to do the one thing, you may want to answer the following questions. What does it take to finally put you first? How bad, you can screenshot these things too if you want. How bad do things have to get for me to do what I know deep down I need to do? What does it take for me to do the hard work that benefits me? What does it take for me to position myself for success regardless of anyone else? What does it take for me to choose my happiness? What does it take for me to do for myself what most mothers would only do for their children? Consider that. I think I've got some more questions. If anybody wants to screenshot, feel free. This is where you're going to write that commitment to yourself to take the bold move, and only you know what the bold move is. And when I reveal the treat here quickly, you're going to know why. So go ahead and take a second and write down what that bold move is. And if you don't know, say to yourself, dear unconscious mind, if you were to know, what is that bold move? Maybe I haven't seen it. Maybe I've been unaware. Maybe I've pushed it down for so long, it's just natural. Maybe I've been so disconnected, I don't even have the information. And that might be the bold move, is how do I reconnect to myself? Maybe that's the bold move of, I don't even know what my needs are. I don't even understand what I really want out of life. I don't even know what I like. Y'all, that was me not long ago. Like 3 years ago. Had no idea who I was. Didn't know what I liked. All I knew was to work hard, and I didn't even know what I was working hard for. So take that moment. And while y'all are writing, what we covered was why love isn't an and or game and how to hijack it in your favor. The 4 archetypes running your relationships on an unconscious level. How to break the karmic cycles even when you hit all your shit. And I think we're to the bonus. So here's where you have 2 options. You can keep going in the direction by yourself, or you can get help. I prefer the help route. Here's where the goodness comes in. As a thank you for attending the workshop and staying till the end, I would love to gift you my signature relationship reset blueprint experience. I've made it 60 minutes. We can explore what karmic cycles keep showing up and how to rewrite the spiritual contract you don't remember signing. And I commit to being in service to you, making the next chapter your best chapter. Let me go ahead and pop that in the chat. I forgot to give this to Erica. All good. While I'm popping this in, I'm going to have some people share who have experienced work with me and who have done some of these things. But does anyone have some bold moves they want to? Where did my Zoom screen? Where did my? Oh no. Oh no, y'all, I lost my PowerPoint. I can't drop it in the thing without. Ah, 1 second. How do I get it back? Trent, do you know how to get it back? Does anybody know how to get my? I don't have the chat.
I'll come in there.
Okay. Anybody have a bold move they want to share, since I can't see the screen and I can't put the link in the chat? Wow, most inconvenient thing ever. Yes, Allison.
Share one. So I'm not even sure if this is it, because I kind of was like, well, I'm not sure I even know what my bold move is right now, but I think what I wrote was to move in the direction that I know I trust myself and that I trust I'm taken care of, instead of always feeling like I have to be my only rock. Like the only thing holding me together is me. And I want to be able to trust that that I'm not alone on the island, I guess.
Right.
Yes, my bold move would be to just trust that I'm taken care of and in my own intuition and myself.
I would ask, I don't know, it's going to happen again because I did the wrong link. I would ask, what has to happen for that to be the case? And you don't have to say anything, but I don't know, he went away. Now it's not working. Yeah, what has to happen for that to take place?
Good question.
All right, that would be the thing. Okay, so I got that. 1 second, y'all.
Can I just say I love the fact that this is you're leaning on your partner right now in one of your most vulnerable moments, and you're leaning into his strength, and you guys are making it work together. I love this.
Thank you.
This is like a wonderful example. See?
I love it. I love it. Thank you all. I have a link for this amazing call to help y'all. Anybody else have a bold move?
I'll go. And I kind of to piggyback off of Allison, I also am very much working on building the trust within myself. I don't know if I ever really have fully had the trust in myself. So I'm right there with you. If there's an island, you are not alone, I promise. Part of that for me, like a structured bold move. I am getting ready to move from a city I've lived in for 6.5 years. And I have a really good job right now. And part of moving is leaving that really good job. And I'm nervous to have the conversation with my boss. And that fear is kind of holding me back. So I think in regards to learning to trust yourself is taking those small manageable risks. That's what I'm, taking the small calculated risks and trusting that I can navigate how to do those.
I love that. That is so good. Also, you've had a lot of wins. This is actually appropriate time for, well, actually, anybody else have any bold moves, y'all? I may have to send this to Erica. BB, raise your hand so she can drop it in the chat. I hate that I can't see it.
Yes, I do have a bold movement that came up from this.
BB, you sound a little far away. We can't really hear you.
Thank you. My
There
mic
we
was in the
go.
back. I appreciate it, Eric. Thank you so much for coming to the rescue. Um, so I do have a bold movement to share, but you guys try sliding 3 fingers up the screen. That's gonna pop up the other things that are open.
Hmm.
On the mouse pad, slide 3 fingers up. That might help.
It's a Mac.
Yeah.
There we go. Well, it. Oh, there we go. I had to pull Chrome
There you
up.
go.
Okay, sorry, y'all. That was. There we go. There's the link. Y'all, the next 2 weeks of my life are dedicated to you. There will be no sales on this call. This is all about holding space for you and going through some of this stuff. So go ahead and book your calls while we're talking. My free gift to you. My free gift to you. Tomorrow's the only day I blocked out as a no. And let us know when you've booked, by the way, in the chat. Just tell us in the chat. All right, BB, what was your bold move?
So my bold move is to take a stance that I've been postponing forever, right? That thing that I need to do that I didn't want to do, and that came to me during this. And thank you so much for all the clarity and everything that you brought up in this call. Working with you is always truly amazing, and this was phenomenal as always. Congratulations.
Thank you, BB. Thank you. Anybody else have a bold move? Has anybody booked their call? Anybody got stuff to work through? Anybody need clarity on their bold move? Oh, hey, Christina, you're just gonna click the link I dropped. Yeah, I just dropped a link in the chat. Y'all click the link and book. And let me know once you're booked, because I've got, that is my treat, y'all. That is my treat. We're gonna walk through your archetypes and the karmic cycles that keep coming up, or whatever you're trying to change, because sometimes it can be hazy.
Well, thank you. I just booked my call.
Beautiful, beautiful. I love it. I love it. Kathy's
My
battery.
thing,
Oh, go ahead.
well, I was just gonna say, I didn't realize how much I did not know how to accept love. Like if a man tried to serve me in any way or do things for me, it made me feel very uncomfortable. And I didn't really understand where that came from, but I didn't realize how much I lived in my masculine energy where I was always one, let's do this, I'll plan this, I'll take care of this. Like I was always the one serving and doing. So when someone would do that for me, it literally made me feel uncomfortable, and I never really could understand it until I started doing a lot of the work on myself. And I didn't really know how to trust myself, and I didn't even know what my needs were. So that's some things that I'm gonna continue to work on.
I love that. Thank you so much. I love that. Anybody else? There's some people. Yes.
I have a bold move. So specifically, my bold move is to actually put my own needs first in every aspect of my life. I have a tendency to wait and ask permission. So my bold move is to stop doing that and to consider my needs instead of everyone else's feelings, because it's not healthy for me to need permission to do the things that I actually need for myself.
Oh my gosh, yes. What we call that is moving out of waiting energy into action energy. And the universe responds to that. Yes, good for you. Action energy. Anybody else? Oh, I love everybody that booked. Yay. Yay. I love doing this. This is my favorite. Bridget says, my bold move is to actually make solid boundaries in my day-to-day. So it allows me to have the space to grow and put myself first. I always serve the others in my life first. Thank you for sharing, Bridget. Yes. Aren't we like, I feel like as women and some men, but most women are just taught to serve everyone else first and leave ourselves for the leftovers. Oh, Valerie did a bold move by not taking calls from those that don't serve. Yes. Yes, queen. Oh my gosh, any other bold moves?
Hey, Caroline, it's Tiny.
Hey, how are you?
Good. So I think I've actually been on this journey for about 2 years now. My husband and I were going to split 2 years ago when I kind of like woke up from I don't know what the hell I was in. I was in this point of like subservient behavior, like I put myself on the back burner and I had dimmed my light, and who I wasn't there anymore. And then I just all of a sudden woke up, was like, oh, this isn't for me. I don't know what's going on, but we have to change this. Um, and you know, I kind of gave him an ultimatum, kind of gave myself an ultimatum, and I was actually going to leave him. I had the divorce papers, I had a house picked out for me and my girls, and everything was going to happen. Um, you know, I gave him to the end of the summer. I was like, listen, if you don't grow with me, then I'm going to grow out of this house. Like that was what it was said. So I felt like I have already done that big step there of just communicating like, hey, this is not what I want for my life or my kids. And he actually jumped on board. He's a lot slower than me, and I'm trying to be patient with that. But so we've kind of come around that dynamic, but also I don't know what the next bold move is that I need to take personally, because I don't know where to go from here. You know, like I know that I need to grow and I know that I need to go, but you know, I know that I'm meant for more. I just don't know which direction to go in. I just speaking to one of my clients the other day, I said, I'm in a hallway with like 10 doors in front of me.
Mm. Oh, that's so good. Oh no, you're actually, thank you so much for sharing. Number one, I can resonate with so much of that. Like there've probably been at least 4 times in the last 2 years, I was sure we were getting a divorce. And then it's like, as soon as I was like, okay, I guess this is what happens. Everything didn't change overnight, but so anyway, thank you so much for sharing. And we can dive into that on the call. You booked, yeah? I think I saw you booked.
Yes.
I'm so
Yes.
excited. You're in a power position of being able to actually feel, depending on how your energy works, which is the right direction for me, and also knowing there's no wrong. So
Yeah.
when you navigate using the universal rules and like feeling your own energy, it always works.
Well, I mean, I just woke up and so I'm into the woo woo a little bit on like different sides. So when I was younger, I was actually blessed to be a leader in some capacity, but every aspect of my life, I have been a leader. And even like last year, I think this was might have been my like catalyst of change for me. My father passed away uh, very suddenly, but it ended up that I was the only one that could take the helm and organize everything, and I was the closest to him too. So, but I had shut my emotions down and my body, and this is really funny because you said it. I shut my emotions down so I could do the things for my family. And everybody's like, well, thank you for being the bitch because nobody else could do this. So that was an eye opener for me. But I had presented with signs of lupus and RA and like all of the autoimmune stuff, like they were all there and the doctors all saw it, but they couldn't find what was causing it. And so I feel like this really like made me realize, okay, yeah, it was me who did it to myself. So
Yes. Thank you so much for sharing. Thank you so much. I gotta ask, who else in here has like resonated with that? Like everything she just shared. I was like, wow, thank you so much for sharing that. That touched everyone here. Everyone sharing has touched everyone, by the way. That's how nervous systems calibrate with other nervous systems. And to me, that's why women in community with other women on the growth journey is so important. So important. Do we want to talk more bold moves, or do y'all want to hear from people who have done some of this work, or would y'all rather? I'm going to leave it up to you. I had it planned that we'll talk bold moves. And if you want to hear from a man who does the work with women, my husband does that as well. I'm going to leave it up to y'all. Hey, Eva. Y'all, Erica's little girl joined the group. Hey, oh, she's the cutest. She's the cutest. Does anybody have another bold move? And if not, it's okay. It's okay. Cool. Well, I'm going to ask Erica and Caroline, a few others, but Erica and Caroline Dean in particular, like, what has changed for y'all since y'all started doing this work?
Yeah, you know what's, oh, sorry, Caroline, go.
No, I was going to say, because it never stops, but it does get easier.
Okay, yeah, I can go first. I really really started this work with Dr. Caroline back towards the end of summer, which doesn't seem like it was all that long ago, but man, it's felt like it with how much work we've done. There's been all kinds of things that have benefited from it, like every relationship that I have with friendships, with my parents, with my, partner, with my boss, and mostly really the relationship with myself. I had a whole lot of time that I was wasting being so overwhelmed and not knowing what I wanted to do and thinking that I knew what I wanted the end result to be, but getting so stuck and lost in the in between, I would go into total freeze mode. And so being able to kind of break it down and really work through the amygdala reset and then have the breakthrough experience alongside the amygdala reset, it's it's changed so much about how I show up for myself on a day-to-day basis. Like we really broke down where I wasn't showing up for myself in the really, really small things. And then once I learned how to build that little bit of trust with myself in the really small things on a day-to-day basis, learning to trust myself in the larger that, have a whole lot more emotional heaviness behind it became easier and easier. And learning what my cycles and my patterns were and being able to one have awareness of my hijack and then really work through how I filtered in information in those hijacks and then how I wasn't taking action once I was hijacked, getting to break all that down with Caroline on such a you know what feels like a minuscule level makes such a big difference in the big picture. And it's benefited everything, really.
Love it. Thank you. Oh my gosh. What she didn't say is her income doubled in 4 weeks by not even looking at it. Anyway, that excites me every time. So I'm like, money follows the same rules as love, but it's like really hard to wrap the mind around that. I just have
Oh, for sure. Like the self-love and the love within my relationships definitely benefited, but in doing that work, I doubled my clients, I doubled my income, I doubled the confidence I have in the work that I did. And that felt like a side effect of the the really deep work. Like I didn't have any idea that was going to happen from, doing the deep dive into the work, but it sure did. I'm glad you mentioned that.
I love that that's a side effect. I'm like, oh, it's beautiful. So there's a lot of people that make a lot of money and they hate their lives. They can't even enjoy it, by the way. But this isn't about money. I just had to point that out. I'm like, that can be an easy side effect or a nice side effect. And then Erica, I know you.
Yeah, forgive the noise in the background. It's almost bedtime for my kids, and I do affirmations with my kids every night, and they're like, it's affirmations time. So listen, I would say that my biggest thing that Caroline helps me with is my people pleasing. I had really not toxic, well, yes, toxic, girl, Caroline. I had really toxic relationships growing up in my family. And that really set the stage for how I just allowed myself to be taken advantage of, to put myself last in previous romantic relationships and work relationships with colleagues. And Caroline did a lot of work with me, but one of the most rewarding things she did for me was the quantum change process, which is, I mean, I can't even describe to you how life-changing just that one intervention is. And Caroline has so much more. But I have set so many wonderful boundaries with my family. That's obviously not my kids right now, but I've set so many wonderful boundaries with my family. And I'm able, most importantly, to go into my business now and realize that I am strong and that I don't have to conform or neglect my needs and my values and put that above somebody else. And I think that was just as a mom, as a wife, as a business owner, as a woman, I just feel like it's one thing to know that, right? Because I knew I had to do that, but I couldn't because it was more than just awareness. It was how do I deal with the things that are really deep rooted in my psyche, that were ingrained in me from, again, Caroline said, from 0 to 7, that really made me see things in this way with other people. And it really has changed my life. My relationship, my husband was really good, but it's like, it's even better. My relationship with my clients is better, but most importantly, my relationship with myself, and the trust that I have in myself for being true to who I am, and knowing that I can express it fully and unapologetically, and know that I am worthy of that, and I am worthy of love, even from people who disagree with me. That has been the most amazing thing. And I just feel like the way that Dr. Caroline was trained allows you to go beyond awareness and know the things that you're supposed to do, but really integrate who you want to be into your being. And so Caroline knows I love her down to the ground. And I just encourage anyone who has not experienced some of the tools that Caroline uses to do it. It's life-changing. I don't think the words, I don't even think the words do it justice, but yeah, she's amazing and I love you.
Oh, I love you. Y'all are amazing. We've got more people here who have experiences to share, but I wanted to give y'all, would y'all ladies like to have a man's information who does the work for the men? By the way, is that okay? Hey, Trent, babe. I don't know where he went.
I'm sorry, Caroline. I know I have these two.
Go.
I love you. I love you all. Good luck. I'm glad you all booked. And I love you, Caroline. Honestly, just keep up. Keep walking in your purpose. I love you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Love all of you. I don't know where.
I'm here.
Okay, would you like to share just a little bit? Because I know there's a lot of ladies who either have men in their lives or they would like to have a man in their lives, but they want an evolved, conscious man. So like, you might be a great resource. I don't know. Can't hurt to have information, y'all.
Where did I start? It's been so much over the last 3 years. It's like I've been on a fast track. And I gladly take it any day. So I'm gonna start by how I kind of used to be and where I'm at now and what it kind of took to get there. Um, I was raised in a family where there was no connection at all, really. Um, Lots of chaos, mental, physical, emotional abuse from my stepdad. My mother passed away whenever I was 10, so there was the abandonment right there as well that played in early in childhood. And I grew up believing that I was worthless. I was never smart enough. I was never good enough. All those things that I feel like a lot of men experience. And it was because those things were always told to me, that I would never be able to achieve any of the things that any of my dreams or my desires. And I would like to just add to that, really, though, is like I achieved everything I ever told that man I would achieve. But today I know that I did it out of spite to prove him wrong. And that's not always the best way to do it. I didn't necessarily do it because I wanted to. I did it because I'm going to prove you wrong. So 3 years ago, it was it's when the wheels fell off. Well, it was a divine intervention. That's the only way I know how to put it. God stopped me dead in my tracks and said, "You're going to change or you're going to die, and other people will too." So I went and got sober. This was after being retired from the military, losing my way because I didn't have a purpose anymore. And that's a lot of what I see with men. They lose their purpose in life, and so the wheels fall off. But I got my wheels back after getting sober, and I started doing studying Ayurvedic medicine. And our relationship was, let me back up just a little bit. Whenever I went to get sober, I had to consciously make a decision and know that I was willing to give up everything, including my relationship with my wife, in order to get better. That was hard for me. That was very difficult. So through all that process, I got my wheels back. The relationship was still very rocky, up and down, like a 3-month cycle of just all out war, basically. And that was just me. Things would get good, I'd tear it down and destroy it because nothing's ever been good in my life, so why should I live that way? So I was studying Ayurvedic medicine whenever Caroline said, hey, uh, you can do some of this work if you want. And I got set up and I did the QCP. And I didn't immediately notice any change. Caroline did. But after about 7 days, I was like, whoa, wait a minute. That's not how I used to handle those things. And then I started noticing things happening more and more. And I was talking to Caroline about it. And I was like, it's got to be because of the QCP process. And I was like, you know what? This is so good. I'm going to stop Ayurvedic medicine and I'm going to go become a certified practitioner as well. So now me and Caroline are both certified, right? And I'm a very huge advocate of men should work with men, women should work with women, because for men, we can identify and relate with each other, and women can do the same as well. Like when it comes to the intervention work and stuff like that, yeah, we can do intervention work on male or female, it doesn't matter. But when we are learning how to be a man, we need a man that has overcome the same struggles that we're trying to overcome to teach us, because there's many men out there that are ahead of us. There's a whole lot more that are behind us. So we need to, that's my goal. And like my purpose now is to help men move the needle. And there's, Caroline can probably tell you a lot more than I can of like the profound changes that she's seen. It's just like, when you're in it, it's kind of hard to see it, right? But the biggest thing for me as a man, in June, I went to the Adirondack Mountains with a group of men from Canada called the Grounded Man. And at that event, I learned how, for the first time ever in my life, to create a safe space and a safe environment for myself, and also how to create it for my wife to go through everything she needs to go through. And, like men, we can process through all of our emotions in 24 hours, where ladies, it takes sometimes like 30 days to process through the same emotion. And, but if that man's not able to create that safe space, then it's going to take y'all even longer to go through that emotional cycle. And there's a technique for doing it with men, probably wouldn't work with women, but it works. It's highly effective with men. And it's shadow work mixed with a reflection exercise, and then men loving men, like embracing each other and loving each other. And that, along with accessing our natural DMTs, not DMT therapy, but our natural DMTs through holotropic breath work, so that we can actually process and move through the trauma from our past. And but that was life changing for me. And I'm here for any man that wants to work. And like she said in one of her slides, I can't drag them through it. They got to step in the fire first. So, but I will walk through the fire with them. If anybody wants to have their man contact me, I'll drop my email in the chat box and we can have conversations about what it looks like to move forward with me.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks.
You're
Hopefully
welcome.
that benefited everyone. That was great. Like you're a masterful storyteller. I don't ever think I've heard you tell it that way before. Yeah.
It's different. And your stories change every time, because when you're talking about a specific event in your life, you do not always remember everything. So the next time I tell it, it'll be different, and that's just because you're accessing it from the unconscious after you do this work.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Love that. Love that. Yeah, drop your email in the chat so that the ladies can snatch it for their men or their potential men. Um, would anyone else like to share? Has everyone got their call booked? I saw a lot. I'm so excited to connect with you all. Like I said, it's gonna be my service to you. Mm, thank you, Hillary. Yeah, there's a lot of, yeah, go ahead, Valerie, please.
Yeah, I also want to say a huge thank you to Dr. Carolyn. I've never called you that before. um, yeah, so we started the QCP process in June or July, I think. And yeah, the same thing, like relationship, Rocky, how much are you going to take? How much are you going to take on? And when I started mine, it was more the fact of I was vulnerable at the same time because I'd walked out of a job. So it was that, oh, right, yeah, taken on more than I expected, the red flags, same thing like you. And it was just like, what am I doing? Obviously I saw more in that person that was there for me to learn, the shadow work, as you say, we learn from each other. But working with Carol and we did the QCP on the people that was needed, especially my mother. And that was powerful because now I come from a place of love with her. And it was so funny. Like she asked me if I was in town the other day, and I said, no. It's about 45 minutes from me. And I already said to myself I wasn't going anywhere that day because I just got back from Sydney and did the DMT breathwork train with Dr. Espen. So I saw Dr. Espen and John D. Martini. These are all the people that I love following as well. And yeah, she rang me and she was stuck in town. And I said, oh, let's work out a way you can get home. I wasn't going to rescue her. Let's work out a way you can get home and think of it as an adventure. So she got the Opal car or bus and a taxi. And I said, oh, let me know when you're home. She told my sister, and my sister rang me. She said, oh, yeah, mum's home. She went on an adventure. And it was just so funny hearing that because it's just like I'd chosen, well, no, I'm not going to be the rescuer. I'm going to empower her to get home herself and how to do it, basically. So even that alone has changed, and I've gotten clearer boundaries as well after working with Carolyn. So, and now speaking my truth, having those conversations, being the observer, and really, really understanding what my values are and what I stand for. And I won't be putting up with that shit ever again. And that's it. That's it.
Slow clap. I love it. It's like, yes. No more putting up with that shit. Oh
So
my
yeah.
gosh.
Yeah. But yeah, I highly recommend doing the work because I have done work over the past few
A
years.
lot of work.
A
Sorry.
lot of, yeah, I've done a lot of work over the past few years. And like Erica was saying, yeah, you have the awareness, but not into the deeper level that you have the awareness, if that makes sense. So yeah.
You were kind of
Well,
skeptical too. I just had to throw that out there.
sorry?
You were a little skeptical too. I love a good skeptic.
I know.
That was the laughing point. She's amazing. She also has a skill set, y'all. Anyway. Okay. I do want to get Nubs to share. I asked him from another male perspective if y'all ladies are okay with it. Are you still there, Nubs? He might not be home yet, or he
And absolutely here. I just had to figure out how to work technology because I am caveman and technology, me, not friend. But yeah, so I actually I think it was 10, I think we're at 10 months now. whenever I did the QCP. Maybe even 11. But and my cat's trying to come up and get love. Um, uh, the QCP was able to do something that I had never been allowed to really embrace before. I don't believe would be the good word. I was able to really get in there subconsciously and draw out some of that pain that had been keeping me so held back. I truly had a worthless mindset. I was led to believe that I was not worth the speck of dirt that I stepped on. Um, I was born with a congenital birth defect on top of that. So not only did I get bullied at home, you know, it was also in school and from, I mean, just all over the place. So embracing and accepting took me a very long time, and I became very cold and bitter. And then I got to jobs that were full of trauma. And so I really held that in and bottled that in because we're men, you know, that's what we're supposed to do. Um, we're supposed to be these figures of strength and invulnerability. Like we're supposed to be invincible. We can't crack under pressure. We're supposed to keep moving forward. Um, and some of the things that I'd seen through life, I became very, very bitter against spiritually, even more so with myself. Much like Trent, I turned to alcohol and stuff like that. I was really using a lot of negative resources, pills, drugs in general, alcohol, and it was actually after me and my wife had got married. Um, you know, that was we got married, and then shortly after that, we did the QCP because I realized one night there was a situation, and the outcome I could have controlled the outcome, and I had no idea how to at the time because I was plastered drunk, and it led to a situation that could have been avoided. However, it was a wake up call. Reality slapped me in the face, and it was like it's now or never, dude. Like you're either about to get right or you're gonna lose it all. So came and seen you, and that opened an entire new door for me. I had been through the therapy sessions. I had, you know, done meetings and tried to work steps, and it was all the same thing. It was just a repetitive over and over again situation. But
You even lost like 30 pounds, right?
yeah, I mean, it after the QCP, my diet changed. I started craving fruit. Like my body actually craved healthier foods. I started noticing little things that were just like Trent said. It was like I have the worst road rage ever. I'm sure a lot of you ladies understand that getting in the car yourselves and with your spouses, especially. I allegedly I have been known to throw hands at red lights here locally. So it all of a sudden I wasn't white knuckling the steering wheel. You know what I mean? So like it was like what? Nah, maybe that's just a coincidence. And all of a sudden it's days and weeks and then months, and all of a sudden it's like I started craving therapy because some of that stuff that was brought to my consciousness from my sub, it was like, wow, we need to really grip down and get down to the nitty gritty and push and work through this. And it took me to be vulnerable. And so, you know, the vulnerability came really just blindsided. I had never been vulnerable until that QCP. And then afterwards, it was like I just wanted to cry tears of joy, um, because I was able to be vulnerable and express that. And now don't get me wrong, there's fluctuations of it and stuff, but I'm aware. I'm consciously and subconsciously aware of what is going on and the processes that have to be taken now. But once again, it's like you said, the diet changes. I'm still at a healthy weight. I'm probably the second strongest physically I've ever been in my life. Our relationship between my wife and I has gotten better. We've had rocky roads, but the the realizations have really started setting in, and like I don't believe that. I truly do not believe that I would have been able to do that without the QCP and learning about the subconscious and the way our body um, retains it and retains all that pain and that remorse and that anger and how much it drags us down and for how long. Um, so it has been one of the most beautiful years, I think, of our lives together for sure, but mine absolutely. It's been you just got to kind of sit back and just scratch your head and go, wow, this is real life now. And I don't have that worthless mindset. I can look at myself in the mirror now in both of my eyes and do my 10 affirmations a day. I love the fact that she was talking about the affirmations with the kids. Um, because I I didn't think it was going to work. Once again, I was like, what is 10 affirmations gonna do? Like a bottle of
Actually,
whiskey.
you were terrified to do it too, right? And I forgot, Valerie, can I share about you stopping
Yeah,
eating? Like
absolutely.
like both of y'all, Nubs didn't think it was gonna work and he was terrified. Valerie actually stopped. Can I open that up for you, Valerie? Her therapist was like, yeah, you don't need it. You were doing EMDR, right?
Yeah, okay. So I started the EMD. Well, I went to the psychologist, and the first session when I started talking about my past, and that was the day after the QCP, I literally had no no feeling. Like there was no emotion that came with my past story with my mum, which was really incredible. And I think I've done 4 sessions with my EMDR lady. We hadn't even started EMDR, and she said to me, "Oh, you don't need EMDR."
I didn't realize you didn't even get the intervention done, the EMDR
No,
intervention.
no, we hadn't. I mean, we did the past stuff, like wrote down my, I don't know, 10 things I can remember about the worst and the best. We did that. And there was, a little bit, but she said, "Oh, I don't think you need EMDR. We can look at something else if you like. However, I think you've done all the work that you need to do." So, and that was just working with Carol.
Oh my gosh, I
And
forgot that
yeah.
Caroline Dean actually, y'all, I forget these things. I'm sorry. I get so
Yeah.
excited now.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So I'm
yeah.
going for one more session with her, just for the 5, and she's going to tell me what her other therapies are. But to be honest, I want to do art therapy. So I'll use the other 5 sessions with that, so yeah. But yeah.
Oh, thank you.
No, it was good.
Awesome. Yeah, I think Caroline Dean said it didn't scratch the same itch or something like that.
Yeah, it definitely didn't. I had a therapist for like 8 months before I started working with you, and while she was helpful, she didn't get nearly as deep into, the subconscious work, and she was an EMDR specialist too. We were doing EMDR, and it's like the stuff with Caroline happens at lightning speed, whether you're prepared for it or not. It happens so crazy fast. It's so powerful that then when I would go back and see her, it was like it felt unproductive. And that's not to say that therapy's a bad thing. I love therapy, all kinds. I have forever. This is just different. The work that Caroline does, it's so life-changingly different.
Thank you.
Yeah, I agree. I've had psychologists my whole entire life, so completely different.
That. Nubs, I'm sorry, I did not intend to cut you off. I had just had a moment. Was there like
Yeah.
a last statement you want to leave us with? Because that was powerful.
Oh, I just love the feedback. I love that everybody is being able to come together, both men and women, being able to see both sides of the vulnerability, and also the molds of what we're all creating. Being able to have opportunities like this is life changing. Um,
Thank
and I
you.
look very forward to looking. I'm looking very forward. English is hard. I'm looking very forward to working with Trent very soon as well, but also with you and getting more um, activated and just growing. Like it's a very exciting time, um, and things are starting to fall more and more into place the more I work and understand and realize and embrace. So it's going to be another great year.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, I think technically I have 3 slides left, but I don't think it's important. Make sure to book that thing. It's actually the relationship blueprint reset. Forgot to change that. And we did Q&A. If I know it's late, y'all, thank you for staying. I appreciate you all. Does anyone else want to share? Does anyone have any questions? Is everybody exhausted and ready to go for bed? Did everybody enjoy that? I enjoyed being in all of y'all's presence. Thank you so much. Okay. Anyone have any last words, questions, comments, excitements, realizations? No? Look, I love every one of you. Thank you so much for showing up. I'm actually glad we had some in here because it was nice to see the other side. Like, I don't know, growth and healing is amazing. And when one wins, everyone wins. So a group like this is potent. And everyone being open here will impact everyone else's nervous system and everyone else's reality at a spiritual level, which trickles down. So thank you so much for coming and having the highest intention and receiving. Okay. Well, I love you all. Hopefully all you got your calls booked. I cannot wait to dive into this with you all. And feel free to reach out to me on Facebook. I've got another event coming up over money in 4 to 6 weeks. So anyway, okay. Ta-ta, everyone. Have a wonderful evening and go into that weekend with some growth and healing and vigor. All right. Bye.
Bye.
Okay.
Bye.